Good afternoon and welcome to TalkSports. It's our weekend program where we major issues regarding sports. We chat with the movers and shakers of sports, the sportsmen, sportswomen, coaches, administrators, just about everyone involved in sports. Okay. This weekend, as indicated, we'll be returning to the that's Grenada's national policy on sports and physical activity, also known as the National Sports Policy. It's nothing new in terms of our discussion. We have been, talking about the sports policy for quite a while. All about the reconsultations and all the activities surrounding the sports policy. And in the chair, again, for this weekend will be Mr. Patrick Simmons. He's a former sports minister and one of the persons who behind the driving force with the national sports policy. Mr. Alvin Clouden also expected to join us sometime. Hopefully he makes it because some logistical issues he has to deal with. In addition to that, we are hearing about quite a bit of rain in Grenada. Oh my. Just a few weeks ago, it was the heat, boy, the heat. Now it's a lot of rain. But first off, let me welcome Mr. Simmons to the program once again and say good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, Mr. Simmons.
Afternoon, Basco.
Right. Good afternoon and welcome once again. It's, as I said, no long introduction simply because you're no stranger to the program. I assume probably you're one of those who have been on that program many times in various capacities, but welcome once again. By the way, I mentioned about the weather. Lots of rain in Grenada today, right?
Yeah, not only lots of rain, lots of welcomed rain.
Welcome rain, yeah.
No complaining.
Yes, I know. Certainly, as one who involves in farming, heavily involved with farming, I know that is welcome.
Yes, welcome rain. Yes, welcome.
Right. But sometimes, there are those who will say, not too much, because in fact, I saw some photos of slides and things in some areas. So sometimes, it has.
That is expected.
Right, yeah. And I assume after all these weeks of extreme heat, is expected at some point in time. And then you have consistent rain. And I'm seeing in the forecast, it will be raining for the next few days,
Yes, and this morning.
Right. So certainly. First off, Mr. Simmons, we have been talking a lot about, and we'll get into some specifics, but overall about the national sports policy. And when we say national sports policy for short, which is the national policy on sports and physical activity, because in the broader sense, what can you say where we are now regarding the national sports policy?
Yes, well, where we are currently, the policy, it's not the policy, but the act itself was commenced, and the commencement of the act gives now the authority to the minister with the responsibility for sports to ensure that whatever needs to be implemented in regard to that act, he or she can proceed to do so. In our case, he can proceed to do so with the full authority from the act itself. So that is where we are currently.
The impression
currently. So in terms of latest development that would drive the process of implementation, that is where we are, the commencement. So it is gazetted and we're ready to roll.
Right. And I was saying that there are a lot of legal issues, obviously, that we'll have to deal with and things like that. So when it comes to that, so are these taken care of?
Well, the amendments to the act, that we have not done any amendment to the act as yet, but we are still collecting information. We're still collecting data. So in other words, the consultation process, as it relates not only to the act, but also to the policy, that still continues. So we have collected or gathered a great amount of information that we are going to place in the policy. Then later on, the amendment to the act would occur. So we're still collecting information regarding the amendments, and the office of the Attorney General would say exactly what we can include or how we're going to include it.
All right. So, so from all reports, it appears that, and in that case, in terms of the timelines that were given, that we well on stream in terms of meeting those timelines and achieving the goals of having the policy implemented, even if it means in phases, or the complete implementation of the policy.
Well, it will be done in phases.
In phases.
Yes, it will be done in phases, starting from the parish councils, starting from the parish councils. So that is where we're going to start.
Okay, and let's go in phases now in terms of someone who is joining the program, let's say, for the first time and hearing about the sports policy for the very first time, or probably may have been confused because they have been hearing, but never really took the time to do, well, a little research. And a research means, you know, probably just Googling whatever it is, whatever information you can get to understand what is the policy. In your own interpretation and few words, and someone who has been involved in the sports policy from since more than a decade ago, how would you guide that person? What would you tell them about the national sports policy?
All right. The policy, the national sports policy in itself would set up a framework that will give guidance for the development of sports in the country. So basically, that is what it's all about. So we have two components. We have the act and we have the policy document. Now, the policy document would outline all the stakeholders, the major players within the policy itself, and give information to what their roles and responsibilities are. So, for example, you have the Ministry of Education, you have the Ministry of Health, you have the Department of Sports, and these three entities, notwithstanding that well, in the case of education and sports, they are together now, but notwithstanding they are different entities, they all have a part to play in making sure that we have an effective running national policy on sports and physical activity. So everybody have their particular part to play.
Right. So that's sets it in motion for some of those who may be, you know, second guessing. And as I indicated, the whole issue of the national sports policy is not something that started yesterday, but as you will rightly say, Mr. Simmons, more than a decade ago, we in 2023, and we have been talking sports policy since 2010 in earnest, I would say.
2010, yes.
2010, right.
Yes.
Yeah. So so we well, and what would you say was some of the issues that really prevented the full implementation of the national sports? So what brings us to this position where we are now still talking about implementation of the national sports policy?
Right. Well, first of all, if we were to put it in context, we would realize that it's a policy document. It's a document that gives policy directive and guidelines to what particular issue that we are dealing with. In that issue, that case here is sports. So respective governments would have would view how or have different vision for the development of a particular discipline or a particular sport, as in that case. So I want to believe that from 2008 to 2013, the vision for sports as articulated through the policy was a vision for how the National Democratic Congress government at the time saw how sports should be developed. So as a result, the policy was developed along that guide given by the government of the day. Now, with transition, we lost the election in 2013, and I want to believe, though, that the incoming government had a different view, a different vision for the development of sports. So as a result, the implementation of the policy halted. And with that halt, things continue to move along in the traditional way, the old traditional way. So as a result, there was not any policy document coming from the administration at the time showing or stating exactly how sports would be developed. So what we see happening now is a transition from that period to where we are currently. And this present NDC government is saying that during the campaign, in fact, they articulated that very well, that you will see the implementation of the policy that was written in 2012. So that is where we are now. But again, too, there were some legal issues that need to be sorted out because the commencement did not take place in 2012. For whatever reason, I cannot recall exactly what the reasons are, but it did not occur. But we now see that there is a commencement, and as a result of the commencement, we now have the opportunity for full implementation. But added to that, there were issues within the policy document itself that things have changed drastically from the period of writing the policy to our current period. So there are so many other things that needed to be addressed. So hence the reason why we had the reconsultation, so that we can gather information, relevant and pertinent information that could now be placed into the policy document that will offer guidance on how sports should be developed. So if I should just make reference to one particular issue, and that of mental health. Now, the issue of mental health was not really addressed in any significant way in the original consultation and the original draft and policy of the national policy on sports and physical activity. That was not embedded. So that is something that we had to look at, and making mention of that, I can safely say that is one of the key interests of one of the stakeholder, that is the Ministry of Health. Because what we have discovered with consultation with the Ministry of Health, they are in the process of doing a policy document on mental health for the entire nation. And the consultants, they were of the view that there should not be a separate policy document for mental health dealing specifically with athletes or sports. So whatever is written on the national level would be transcend into the policy for sports, looking specifically at mental health. So that is one area that much emphasis and focus was not focused on. So we went back and we look at it, and know that area or that aspect is definitely part of the policy document. Now, the issue of food and nutrition too. Food and nutrition was mentioned, but the way that we approach it right now is far different to how it was approached in 2010. So that is a focus area, and it's an area that we believe has a very pivotal role to play in the development of our athletes. So much focus has been placed on that. Safeguarding sports is another area. In fact, when I heard the term during the consultation, it had me baffled about what it is that they were really talking about. And I can recall vividly that came up in the consultation we had at the auditorium of the GBSS. And I had a full discussion with, I can't even recall the name of the person that brought it up. I had a full discussion with him, and I realized how important that is. And from doing my own little research, I came up with and saw the genesis of it, and it went right back to the United States. When issues with some athletes had some issues with the coaches and so forth, And this whole aspect came to light, and it is now embedded in our policy document. So just to mention these two areas, or these three areas: mental health, nutrition, and safeguarding sports.
Yeah, and in addition to that, let me say, by the way, let me say good afternoon, Rudian. Rudian is on with us, and also Edwin Sam in New Jersey. Thank you for joining us as well. That the policy in itself, as you said, is a document, and as any other law, bill, whatever it is, will need amendments from time to time. Now, it's almost, well, not almost, it's more than 10 years ago. So there's every reason why at this stage, in terms of implementation, there's need for some level of reconsultation and amendments, because, as you say, back then, there was nothing in the document regarding mental health, nothing about safe play, nothing about, food and nutrition. And I assume there are other areas like,
Yes.
social media, lots of things that will come up from time to time that certainly will need for certain level of amendments as well.
Yes. But we have to look at Vanessa. So I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. Good to see you.
Good. So
Michael is up. Good to see you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have to look at amendments in two categories. We have to look at amendment to the Act, and we also have to look at amendment to the policy document. The amendment to the policy document would be done through the cabinet. So the cabinet has to give approval for these amendments. Whereas the amendment to the Act must be taken to the Parliament in order to receive bipartisan support, or to be discussed, to be debated before that amendment can be made. So we have two types. So with the policy document, that is now being put into place. So it's a matter for the cabinet now to do their own review and to give the go ahead. But however, what is already there can still suffice in terms of we proceeding to implement what we have to implement at this point in time.
I want to add something because I've been and that will probably a segue into another discussion we need to have, because I see a number of people on, and I know they're trying to get some clarity on some things, and I probably want us to deal with it as early as possible so that we have sufficient time to put that to rest. And I would say, Mr. Simmons, and it may come across a bit harsh, but unfortunately, I don't think this administration is very serious about sports. And let me clarify what I mean about it. I mean, barring what you're doing there, what Mr. Clouden, doing, collectively, the government has not been, sort of articulating at, major projects such as the national sports policy, the initiatives of the administration in terms of sports, with our sportsmen, our sportswomen, and a signature project, I would say, as the national sports policy, by the way, which was born from a previous NDC administration. Okay, I'm just using that as an example. But apart from yourself and Mr. Clouden to an extent, and recent announcement about the relaying of the track at the Kirani James athletic stadiums, and the repairs on the cricket stadium, there has not been anything of significance, I would say, for our members of parliament to speak about regarding sports. And for some reason, they are not using what's around them to talk about it, and to let the people know. None of the parliamentarians speak about sports in their community engagement, something I raised with you already, Mr. Simmons. None of them speak about sports in regular engagements they have, and they don't speak about it. How many parliamentarians, if I may ask, understand the importance of the national sports policy as you explained in there? What are their constituents are saying about the sports policy? What their constituency are relaying to them, especially when Some of them represent constituency where there's heavy sporting activities taking place. How will it affect or even affect the lives of the individuals in their various communities? What are they just waiting for when the bills arrive in Parliament, and then just provide a rubber stamp on it without really understanding, what are the effects the bill will have, and such a and these sort of things. How would they be able to give genuine support to such a bill if they do not understand it? Well, it is my hope, Mr. Simmons, and I'm saying that again, that there will be some sort of renewed synergy among our parliamentarians in particular, because you're speaking about some of these amendments have to go to Parliament for passage and things like that. And hopefully, there will be some sort of renewed interest among those parliamentarians. Even though your committee, well, when I say committee, Sports Council, whatever, may have met with some of these parliamentarians, but I don't find that there is much chatter among them about the national sports policy, which is a very important policy document when it comes to sports. How many Caribbean countries have that? How many Caribbean countries are now trying to get a national sports policy in place? And which brings me to another issue. There has been a series of consultations with various stakeholders regarding this national sports policy. And I recall one such was with the Media Workers Association of Grenada, MWAG, which I was once affiliated in terms of as president. And from what I'm hearing, Mr. Simmons, and you'll get the opportunity to correct me and to guide me along, only one person in the media attended such consultation. Only one to probably listen and ask and questions and things about it. Therefore, it's not really surprising that a recent story that was circulating about, I'm trying to see if I can pull it up there, about an aspect of the policy that didn't even make any reference to the policy document or sought clarity about the issue, And in my last inquiry on Friday, which is yesterday, I forgot to ask you about it today, only one person, Mr. Kellan Bob of the Bob Report, sought clarity about that issue, which was published a few days ago. Mr. Simmons, I'm handing it over to you to give me some clarity on that. And then, Rudian, you will come in because I know you want to get some answers as well.
Okay. Now, people, parliamentarians, the general public, even people that support the development of sports, they really will get excited when their physical infrastructure being mentioned. Anytime you speak about physical infrastructure, people seems to get very excited. Like you're going to build the national Olympic swimming pool. That will create some level of stir. People will like to hear about that, and people will talk about it, and that does not leave out the parliamentarians and even cabinet members. However, when groundwork or embryological work is being done with sports or any other area, you may not get a great buzz about it, because now these are the things that would further lead to the infrastructure development, that will further lead to other bigger things that the people will not be able to see and identify with. So I'm not too worried or over concerned about the seemingly behavior of the parliamentarians towards the development of sports. I'm not too worried. However, I can say in particular to the minister, he gives a lot of support. He gives a lot of support for issues relating to the development of sports, even outside of the policy. So anything to do with the development of sports, he gives a lot of support. And that in itself speaks volume. However, there is always room for improvement. Much more can be done. And the more the parliamentarians and the MPs and so forth get to understand exactly what is happening, that will put them in a better position to explain to their constituents what is happening, and not only what is happening, but reasons why their constituents should give support to what is happening. And in that regard, talking about the national policy on sports and physical activities. So, and and the way things are organized in our society, sports always seems to get thrown at the back, always put at the back. It's the same way too athletes are being treated. Some athletes or some people believe that you could be a good athlete and that's it. Nothing else about you is outstanding than just being able to run, or probably to kick a football, or be able to play basketball or something of this sort. So the other aspects of human development, outside of that, they don't really see you as an athlete being engaged in these things because you're an athlete. So the same thing going with agriculture. So the way society was developed and how we were cultured, we seems to put certain things, give priority to certain areas, and the other areas we have it in the background. So these are things we need to work on, and things that we need to bring to the fore, and get the population to understand that the importance of sports is as important as physical activity as it is as nutrition, which is also important for maintaining good health. So there should be synergy, but the education system will have to evolve around these things to get the people to understand. Now, on the issue raised about the MWAC, there were two media people present at that particular consultation. They came in and they participated well. In fact, the female participant, she had a lot of questions to ask, and she shared a lot of views on how she sees sports, the development of sports, and the role that the media should be playing in it. So 2 is better than 0. So we take it from there, and we just have to be prepared to work with whatever is available. It's a process. I wouldn't get too.
Yeah, I know.
I won't get daunted. And taking into consideration
I'm only smiling because of the thought process. But a question being asked about why aren't there more announcements for the consultations towards the sports policy? The person is saying it seems like the meetings are announced quietly. I'm only reading it because it's there.
Yeah,
but
that is not the truth.
That's not true. That's
yes, and even the consultation actually took a grassroots approach, because we had PA blasts in the communities where the consultations were held. We had the media was, highlights and the news and everything. I think we had a good PR for the consultation. And in my opinion, the consultation was well attended.
Well, especially those out in the outer parish, some of them.
Yeah, it was well attended, very well attended. In
outer parishes. And then you had one. How many times you had at the GBSS auditorium? It was once, I think.
Yeah, we had one at the GBSS. And the one at the GBSS auditorium, it was well attended. We got good quality from the one at the GBSS auditorium too. The attendance was not great. I think probably could have been around 20-something people. But the quality that we got, and a lot of coaches were there. Coaches were there too.
Right.
So I wouldn't say that the PR was not. The PR was good.
Yeah, and I think this time around, and I'm saying this time around because remember you had some back in 2010, 2011, we had some consultation.
Yeah, we had hundreds of people in this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We had quite a bit of people, and I even remember the one in St. Mark's, for example. I attended the one in St. Mark's. I attended one in St. John's. because I actually came down to Grenada to participate in these consultations. Well, yeah. So not too correct about, but I just read it for what it meant that in terms of that, because you know, we even had an online consultation.
Yes,
You know,
yes, yes,
yes.
yes.
We
With
remember
online
we had an online consultation with
people from the
people.
diaspora.
Yeah, and a lot of the athletes and former athletes themselves participated, etc. We even had one or two folks who were, even though it was for the diaspora, we had folks in Grenada who participated. I remember Chenny Joseph, for example, came on that one in particular. So yeah, I don't think it's correct. But regarding the facilities, Mr. Simmons, and that in particular, because it seems as if, and by the way, folks, that's not the sports policy. Yeah? The sports policy is a number of issues. That's just one aspect of the sports policy. I think people get sort of mixed up. And again, I'm saying because they don't do any research and things like that. So because I don't understand how someone could write a story like that without even getting clarity from whether it's a permanent secretary, whether it's the minister, whether it's the folks that actually involved in the sports policy. At least, sought some clarity, and if not, then I can see that you said that you attempted to get clarity on that. But I mean, well, I don't know. This is journalism 101 as far as I'm concerned. May his soul rest in peace. I know the late Leslie Pierre, for example, a story like that will never pass because Mr. Pierre himself will tell the reporter that you need to get something to add with that. If not, he will himself will call. He will call, he'll probably pick up the phone. Mr. Simmons, I have a reporter who has a story here, but I need to get some clarity on such, because it doesn't really not really make sense, but it needs some clarity, etc., etc. And if he doesn't, then he says, well, he attempted to get in touch with Mr. Simmons or some official or whatever. I don't know. To me, that's journalism 101, but that's for another issue. But let's get some clarity on that, Mr. Simmons, as it relates to the facilities, because as far as I know, based on what was circulated, this is not really the case.
Yes, it's not the case. But from where I sit too, I still welcome that particular article. I welcome it. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
Some it formulated discussions.
Exactly. And not only discussion, but really deep discussion. And is all notwithstanding that the reconsultation, and even at the time when this was written, there were consultations, and that in itself passed, and no one really paid too much attention to it.
Yeah.
However, I think there was some level of mischief behind it also, right? But notwithstanding that, I think there is a lot of clarity. A lot of clarity could be brought to exactly what this is all about. In the first instance, the development of the policy focused mainly on what I refer to as two things, or two major areas: grassroots development for sports and sports for all. Okay? Now, if you're focusing on sports for all, therefore, the facilities to accommodate sports for all must be open to the general public, right? So based on what is written there and what actually should happen, there's some level of no synergy between the two. Now, if you're going to focus on grassroots development of sports, or development for sports, then also facilities must be available. Added to that, when you now take a policy decision to focus on seniors' physical activities within the communities, we now have to start looking not only to utilize the facilities that we have, but also make new facilities with a new approach to accommodate this class of people, or this set of people, seniors. So if you go back to the policy itself now, you will realize that the policy made mention to these facilities, and these facilities is owned and operated and maintained by the Ministry of Sports. The Act speaks to the councils would have authority over the facilities also. But that level of authority would not be something that would happen immediately. The authority that will be given to the council would be done in a phase basis. And it would be based upon the judgment of the ministry to the minister with responsibility for sports. So I can safely say at this point in time that only one field, based on the discussion we had with the minister, is only one field that will be assigned to each of the parish council in their various parishes. So they would be responsible for managing. They would be responsible for managing that particular facility. The maintenance of the facility still would be in the hands of the Ministry for Sports. But there will be some level of collaboration between the two entities.
Okay.
So,
no, you're making sense there, because the fact is there's also common sense in that where in Grenada, outside of probably the national stadium and which other field, I don't know, there probably are just about a few fields that are fenced in Grenada, right? You have to get in, as it is now, most of the fields are open, okay? So one gets the impression that people are trying to convey that under this new rule or regulation or whatever, is that you have to get permission to jog on a field, okay?
So it's
and that's the context I'm saying, it's common sense, because I look at the example, and I'm glad someone raised the issue, like Mount Morris playing field, for example, which is basically managed by a committee, the community, Mount Morris Community Development, whatever is the name of it, but it's still maintained, as I assume, in terms of maintenance and thing, or whatever assistance they get is from the Ministry of Sports in terms of maintenance or whatever it is. Now, and the point being made too is that if Queen's Park, not the national stadium, because obviously the national stadium is under a statutory body as the stadium authority, but if the Queen's Park, for example, myself, you, Mr. Simmons, and probably Rudian decided to have an activity on Sunday. And without knowing that Mr. Simmons planning something and Rudian planning something, I decide to have something, let's say a football competition. You decide to have a cricket, and Rudian decide that he probably will have a little family reunion. You understand? It means that will be chaos if we don't have some sort of management in place that will say, okay, Rudian, yes, your family reunion, probably, if you really want to have it on Sunday because of the bookings we have there, you may want to have it in the morning period up to about 12 o'clock or whatever time, based on that. And Mr. Simmons, your cricket tournament, we may have to push it for next week because Michael already has already applied for the use of the playing field for a football tournament, blah, blah, blah. So that in terms of the management. However, that doesn't mean that Mr. Alvin Clouden, who gets up early in the morning and jogs around the playing field, cannot jog in the playing field. You understand what I'm saying? I hope I'm making sense, Mr. Simmons. But
making sense.
Right. But, so go ahead.
No, it's how the angle.
Yeah.
The angle and the context in which you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
If you're coming from a context of just seeking clarity, to know exactly what does that really mean, and how does that impact on what's about to happen, then you seek that information. But if you want to make mischief, then you bring it in such a way, you present it in such a way that would create confusion in the minds of those who don't really have a clear understanding of exactly what is happening. And I think that is what actually happened in that case. But however, I'm still saying that notwithstanding that would have happened, it now gives the implementers an opportunity when they continue the consultation to make specific reference to that act, that part of the act, and get the views of, but in fact, the legal people already provided their views on it. The legal people already provided their views on it to us.
Okay, right.
Yes. So we're clear. We're very clear. But at the same time, it will be wise, it will be prudent, so that we open it up now to the general public, so they too can give their views. So we can have some level of synergy between what the legal minds are saying and what the people are saying, so we could present that for the amendments.
Yeah, because you're still in the reconciliation phase. Okay, Rudian, yeah, go on. Yeah.
Definitely. I totally understand that, because we had the same issue out here. Most of the fields belong to the city. We pay tax onto it. But if we need to, actually, we have to rent it or book an appointment to use it on a major event. But if somebody wants to go and jog, it's open for the public, because we are paying tax onto that. But if somebody needs to use it for an event, you actually have to pay to use it, because now you're booking it and it belongs to you. So from A time to B time, it's your time. So I understand where you're coming from. But Mr. Simmons, I have a question. The policy you said is going to launch through the parish councils. What would that look like?
Okay, we had a discussion on that also. It will be open up to all the citizens of the parish. Okay, the policy document made mention to clubs, schools, leagues, and so forth. But this thing will be open up to everybody, because there are sports enthusiasts that may not be associated with a club, they may not be associated with a league, but they're interested. They're interested in making a contribution, so it will be open to them also. Now, the intention here is to have approximately, I think it will be around seven people that will form that board or that executive, and they will have a chairperson. That the chairperson would also be the parish representative at the national level. Okay, and then they will sit there for 3 years. Then also at the parish level, you will have the board members. They too would receive a stipend for board meeting. I think constituted one board meeting per month. There will be an officer that will be assigned to each council. So that officer would be responsible for ensuring that whatever decisions are taken in terms of implementing programs within the parish, that officer will be responsible for that. So whether or not they have to liaise with the National Council, or they have to liaise, like in the case of St. Andrews, may have to liaise with the St. Andrews Football League or the St. Andrews Basketball League. So that officer would be responsible for doing all this liaison. The council itself would receive a subvention from the government, and that subvention would assist them in doing whatever need to be done in the parish in terms of the development of sports.
Should the schools, clubs, and organization groups, do they have to register with the parish council?
All right. Now, what we're trying to do, we're trying to get, or the intent is to get all these organizations to be registered, not with the council, but to be registered organization. So by the time they incorporate, they would already be registered. So we have registered organizations actually being part of the council. So that is the intent here. Now, that in itself will take some time, but we are going to proceed.
So those schools, club, organization have to register with the Ministry of Sports or the National Council? How do they register?
They would register. They'll be registered with the authority that is responsible for allowing organizations and so forth to become
they call it the regulatory
body. Yes.
Yeah.
Regulatory body. Okay.
So you're registered as a sporting organization, for example. So, for example, the Grenada Olympic Committee, Inc., is a registered sporting association. There are other clubs in Grenada, sporting clubs are already registered. They're registered. You can go to the registry and see that it's a registered sporting organization. So some of them are already registered. For example, we have the two boxing.
Yes, the boxing is a typical example.
Yeah, one is registered. I think one is registered, one is not registered, whatever it is. GFA is registered. Most of these national sporting associations are actually registered. Okay,
well, actually,
and that's why. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, and I was saying, and in most cases, for example, for them to have even a bank account, it's expected for them to be registered. So even the schools are already registered per se. The schools are already registered. It's just an aspect of the sporting department or sporting aspect of it, but they're already registered. So
let me just allow me to make this point. There,
please go ahead.
The accounts. Now, in order for the councils to have the accounts, the bank accounts, the commencement had to happen in order for that, because it's a piece of legislation that gives them the authority, gives the not the Attorney General, but someone in the Ministry of Finance, the Accountant General.
The Accountant General.
Give the Accountant General the authority to provide the go ahead for the councils to formulate or to have these bank account. So, in other words, any funds coming to that bank account, they have to be able to give account legally in terms of the usage, spending, and whatever happens with it.
Okay. Let me just see management of playing fields, management and maintenance of sporting facilities. That's part of the appendix in the sports policy.
Yes.
I didn't think you touched on it, but if you go in details, and folks, if you really want to get a copy of the document, I have it on our WhatsApp channel, so you can easily access it there. But there is a deputy sports coordinator for facilities, right?
Yes.
Based on the policy, and
Yes.
And when it comes to the access to facilities, responsibility for granting access to the parish, at the community and parish level, facilities will be delegated to the respective parish sports councils.
Yes.
And or selected community organizations which will operate under the policies, the guidelines contained in this document, right? And then it goes on to say about the use of the facilities. But in particular, it says facilities will be available for the use of all citizens of Grenada and all organizations operating under the auspices of the National Sports Policy. However, access to the facilities will only be granted once approval for use is obtained as per the following. And it gives a sort of guideline in terms of that. Individuals can have access to the facilities that are not secured under lock and key for recreational purposes, etc., quite a bit. So I think to an extent there's some sort of level of clarity, and I think during the reconsultation there's an opportunity for much more clarity. Yes. And for input from individuals. By the way, remember, the policy document itself Mr. Simmons, you can probably guide me on that. In terms of an act of parliament, right, was passed back in 2010, 2011. I'm still trying to remember the year in particular, right? Can you tell me the year in particular it was? Because I think a document I have said had November 2010, but I think that was prior to the passage of whatever it is.
The approval was in 2012.
2012, okay.
Yeah, the approved document was in 2012.
And am I correct to say that there was bipartisan support in terms of the approval?
Yes, definitely. I can recall vividly one of the major issues that were actually raised with that policy document was the implementation cost. I remember the opposition leader spoke in length to that, find that too much of money would have to be spent on actually implementing a policy of that magnitude. But outside of that, there were bipartisan support, both the opposition and the ruling party at the ruling government at the time.
Okay, and the opposition, you're referring to at the time as leader of the opposition, Dr. Keith Mitchell.
Yes.
And you had Roland Bowler, who was spokesman on sports. Modest Cohen, Clarice Modest Cohen, and then the late Alvin Nimrod, right?
Yes.
They were the people who gave the support. Well, I wanted to make sure because I was in Grenada. Well, anything with sports and at that level, I have to get down to Grenada. And the passage of that, I recall the interview with Dr. Mitchell at the time that given the support of his opposition members, the support of this national sports policy, and his concern at the time was the issue of the cost. But again, he gave full support. He thought it was needed. The only disappointment I would say was after the actual implementation of the sports policy. But then again, as you said, the implementation was always catered for in terms of phases, right? Yes. Phase. And to some extent, there were parts of the policy that was actually implemented, the lighting of playing fields.
Yes, that was part of, yes.
Yeah, the lighting of playing fields, which started, was part of the sports policy. Are there any other aspects of the sports policy that you can recall that were actually implemented?
Yes, the councils, we had about 3 councils. We had the St. Andrew Council, St. John had been there.
That's right.
Yeah, but they got institutional strengthening, and they received, I think they had received monies to assist them in running the council.
So if these Parish Sports Councils started, barring St. John's have always been there, by the way.
Yes.
We're talking about Parish Sports Council. There is a template that is already there in terms of St. John's Sports Council. Okay.
That is what has been used. Just
right.
Upgrading it here and there,
So we had, you said there was one for St. George, there were St. Andrew. So
yeah, I think St. Mark too. I think St. Mark had one.
So what happened? I mean, what happened therefore that they became extinct?
Well, as I said to you, there was a change in the administration, and it's just different. But there was a document that was floating around, at one time. There was a document floating around at one time, but one of the critical aspect of that particular document, I think I have a copy of it. One of the critical aspect of it is that where the National Sports Council fitting in the chat, it was replaced by I want to believe it was the Grenada Olympic Committee.
Yeah.
So that organization chart, actually there will be a new organization chart for the ministry with responsibility for sports. You see, the policy document spoke to a deputy coordinator of sports that is responsible for facilities. That in itself has already been implemented because there is a current new deputy coordinator for sports, and his responsibility is only field maintenance. So that aspect is already there. But there will be another deputy that will be responsible for programs, coaching and so forth.
Mhm.
So when you look at the proposed structure, you realize, although there are some people that of the view that there is not clear lines of demarcation between the council and the ministry. There are concerns about that. But the coaching programs, grassroots coaching program, will still be run by the ministry with responsibility for sports. The maintenance of the fields would still continue and will be strengthened, in fact, under that organization chart, will be strengthened by having somebody specifically responsible for that. Whereas as it was, we had one coordinator for sports that is responsible for the two aspects. So you have institutional strengthening there now to support what is happening with the sports council. Because the
Okay.
sports council too would have their part to play. And in fact, the usage of the field, the sports council cannot just go straight ahead and give authority to an organization to use the field without consultation with the ministry, because the ministry will have that broader template that is responsible for taking all bookings. So whenever the sports council gets application for use, it must go to the ministry. So the ministry will have the overall, schedule for all the facilities. So they will be in the know of what is happening at all the different facilities.
Right, and then in addition to that, because there's a clear example. For example, this weekend there were these football matches that were scheduled in the Wagiti football competition for Victoria Park in St. Andrew, and because of the weather, they said that the field is not in a good condition for the matches to be played. So the matches are being moved to the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Now, if you don't have proper management of facilities, I'm saying he might have been in a quandrum as to where can I go, where can I get permission, where can I, whatever it is. However, in this case, because the Kirani James Athletic Stadium is under management, I'm certain he would have been able to contact the management of the stadium, get the permission because whether or not it's booked for tonight, whether it's not booked, whatever, if it's available, I'm talking about, right? They will determine, well, okay, you can move to the stadium because there's nothing booked for the stadium and the stadium is ready to accommodate, etc., etc. And I'm just bringing that point to show that how management of these facilities of the facility is very critical. And it's not a situation where you can just decide to have an activity tomorrow and then just go at a playing field and decide that you can just use the playing field. It may be available, but at the same time, somebody else might have booked the playing field for something. I had a family reunion at Lassaget's playing field some years ago, and I sought permission from the ministry for the use of the playing field. And we had the playing field from a certain time to a certain time, in a written form, and all because we didn't just take our family and just showed up at the Lassaget's playing field, or we go to another playing field, And I'm just bringing that point to show that in some areas you need management of facilities. Rudian, anything you need to add here?
Yeah, there's one more thing to add. Well, Mr. Simmons, I'll send you an email in details, breaking it down concerning mental health. There's a few things, but I'll send you an email, definitely, just to get some more clarity on that. Because I'm skeptical of. Yes, I will, because I'm always skeptical of mental health. I just said it's going to be in an open spectrum now, compared to mental health in sports. So I just wanted to, kind of get a breakdown and a view on that. But I'll send you an email on that. So yeah.
All right, and Mr. Simmons, so the reconsultations are continuing, okay? And then there is a schedule for a national consultation, okay?
Yes.
Right. What are the timelines we have, and if you can provide in terms of these reconsultations that are continuing and the national consultation before we get into, the overall, you know,
I don't.
debate.
Alvin is the one that has.
Oh, okay,
that
okay.
information. Yes, he has that
Okay. In terms of the timelines. Okay,
Yes.
so. But as you said, the reconsultations are continuing in the process of getting the feedback from various stakeholders.
Yes. We have no choice. Because this thing been resting there for quite a while. So we have things has changed tremendously. So we have to continue the process. And not only that, after the cabinet would have approved the aspect of the policy document itself, after that is been approved, we still will have to keep looking and making sure that any new development that need to be included is included, because now all we need to do is just go to cabinet and not go to the parliament. It's just go to the cabinet and say, okay, this is a new development, and get the cabinet through the Minister for Sports gives their support for it and say, okay, that is that now. So let's move with it.
Okay, so is it fair to say, Mr. Simmons, that come 2024, at some point in time in 2024, we'll have, some sort of large-scale implementation of the sports policy? I'm not saying the full implementation.
The Prime Minister already spoke to the Minister for Sports, so if you want to start foot.
Oh, okay.
That was my question. We understand the policies is like a 4-year policy within the Olympic year. So next year is Olympics year, and if it's not in full running, then we could end up becoming trouble again. So that's all my question was: when would the full policy be up and running? What is the timeline for that?
No, we done in phases. I cannot tell you the time, what time, but it will be done in phases. Added to that, the reward and incentive packages. That is something that must come to the public domain before the Olympic.
If facilities created such a thing, you can imagine when it comes to the incentive, something like that. So, when it comes to the incentives and reward and recognition and all these aspects, there's so many aspects of the sports policy, right? That facility is just one aspect of it. Then you have the incentives, and
that's a major aspect. That's a
major aspect, and it's one that had a lot of some level of interest especially for the sportsmen and sportswomen.
Yes.
And then you have the whole issue of those who saying that nothing was there in my time, so
that is a concern.
Will there be something available for me now?
I think they owe me something. I think I deserve something now.
That is the major concern. It's not going to be retroactive, but the cabinet through the minister will have to make a decision on that, because the way things. Well, I had to admit to him that our response in 2012 was really a knee-jerk reaction, because there was a framework within the policy itself. There was a framework. There was something that was mentioned, but it was never addressed by the cabinet. So when this thing came and it happened so abruptly, even though you saw it coming, you saw it coming, but it happened so abruptly in terms of the way it unfolded, that there was no policy directive to say, okay, this is what should happen, or this is what. So we had to depend on what the Minister for Sports would have recommended and what the Minister for Finance felt that the Ministry of Finance has the capacity to deal with at the time. And even Foreign Affairs too, because you remember there were a number of people that were appointed ambassadors. They got diplomatic passports. No, not diplomatic, they got official passports.
Yeah,
they got official passports. And there were also housing accommodation for a couple athletes and coaches got housing also. So, but this thing was a kind of knee-jerk reaction. But going forward, even before the event, you will know that if the Grenada cricket team goes to play cricket in the Olympic and they are successful, they come in 1, 2, 3 or whatever, they know that is what they're entitled to on return.
Okay, so hopefully there will be some clarity on the
Yes,
issue of incentives.
there will definitely be some
Yeah,
clarity.
on the issue of that. Yeah, because I
Yes,
know from the first time around, it was left like that because there were need for consultations with the sporting
yes,
federations on that.
yes,
And there's no reason putting in a dollar figure into a sports policy simply because there's so many circumstances in terms of inflation, economic situation,
yes,
all
yes.
these sort of things that you have to take into consideration. So it's best to leave it like that and have the consultations with the sporting federations because,
But that
as you
was done.
say, yeah, as you
That was
say,
done.
whether it's at a regional level, a regional meaning, for example, you use the cricket as an example, whether it's Windward Islands cricket, you know,
Mhm.
whether it's, they go on to play Commonwealth games in cricket,
Yes, yes,
all these sort of things are
yes,
things that you'll have to consider. Yeah,
yes.
I fully understand and agree. We're coming close to the end. I still want to chip in some moment. By the way, Mr. Simmons, after the program, you may have to go in and read some of the comments. I just browse basically. I can't get in all of these comments, and I don't want to spend time on just one issue. There's so many other issues we need to deal with regarding the national sports policy. Okay, what it is like in terms of the some of the other countries, the regional countries, because at the time when we were dealing with the national sports policy back in 2010, 2011, Grenada was probably the only one that was really in the region that was really talking about sports policy. Since then, we have heard about Jamaica coming up with a sports policy. We have heard about St. Lucia. We heard
Yes.
other countries talking about a sports policy. Um, Within the last year or so, when there has been a hype in terms of the sports policy, what sort of interaction you and your committee would have had regarding other regional initiatives?
Yes, well, I know that the Secretariat had close interaction with the University of the West Indies. There was some, I cannot say exactly who it was, but I know there was some dialogue between the Secretariat and the University of the West Indies in terms of the implementation and the development of the policy. I think the Clouden to the Secretary, he too was in contact with Trinidad. Trinidad. I think the sports company in Trinidad, I think he had some dialogue with them also. So I can make reference to these two areas that I know definitely there was some level of dialogue and consultation with. In fact, I think the St. Augustine campus, they provided a document. They provided a document with comparison to what we had on paper and what they suggested should happen. So that is available to the Secretariat. I think Clouden will be able to provide some clarity on that.
Okay. As we speak here, I have an eye monitoring our the OECS Swimming Championships taking place in St. Lucia. And
Okay.
actually, the presentation is going on for the morning session there. And I've noticed quite a few Grenadians on the on the podium, and wondering whether or not in a policy document, these are the things. That's the sort of conversation that will be needed at some
Yes,
point, because I
definitely.
know the ministry itself would have been involved in getting the swimmers to St. Lucia. For some reason, it's a costly affair because they normally carry a large contingent of swimmers, right?
Mhm.
Because when you have the swimming championships and in fact, I think swimming normally will have the largest delegation of sporting participants in any regional activity, because they carry sometimes 20 something, 30 something swimmers to these activities. So it costs quite a bit. And I know of, well, in fact, I saw a, a, a message from a concerned parent, about the cost involved in getting, his son to participate in that. Well, I think it's his first time involved in that. So I know how it has been for parents who have had probably 2 or 3 swimmers on the national team, and they have been there for probably 3 or 4 years. I can recall probably the Cherubim, for example. They had about 3 of their siblings involved in swimming, representing Grenada, and have to, it's costly, and certainly a national sports policy will address some of the concerns, but it's good to see our Grenadians on the podium. I don't know the age category, but I'm seeing a situation where they're 1, 2, 2, 3, all this sort of situation. So I think, Mr. Simmons, in your mind, you should be wondering what sort of incentive package can estimate team. But that's why, and I'm saying it's important for that sort of
yes.
And that's why we encourage people to participate in these symposium, these forum, these reconsultations, so that they can hear more and they can probably give their insights into it as well.
There's an opportunity to make a difference.
Right, to make a difference. Yeah. So the first, in just wrapping up, in terms of the national sports policy, in terms of the National Sports Council, we will probably see the Parish Sports Council taking root as early as possible. The last time we on the program, Mr. Simmons, you were mentioned about, I think they were getting ready for, getting office space, office space and all these sort of things. Are these things finalized by now?
Yes, for all, yes. They're all finalized now. I think the last one I had the opportunity to do the visit with the team for that one. I think that was in St. John. Because originally they wanted to use the office that were housing the Ministry of Works. But they have since decided that they're going to use a next space, which I think is much better than the office that the Ministry of Works. So that is done. I think what is happening right now, even with the close of the budget, the procurement of furniture and equipment for the offices, that has already taken care of. So going forward now is the secretary. You have to have the secretary for each office, or for each parish. The applications already came in and they were kind of sorted out, vetted out.
So you mean people have been showing interest in applying for the?
Yes.
Oh,
People applied for the various positions, and that was done quite a little while now. It's the same way to the logo. There was a competition for the logo, and there's a logo available now too, a logo that we're going to use. So that has been done. So
what about Carriacou? No,
on board. In fact, I want to believe Carriacou might be one of the whatsoever is going to happen with Tom in terms of the laying out of the implementation. I think Carriacou will be one of the councils that will be formed first.
Oh, okay.
So if you have probably 3 or 4, but the minister did give some insight into that, but probably I should just leave it for him to say exactly how you want to see it roll out.
But you're saying that Carriacou is fully on board, right?
Yes, Carriacou definitely. Carriacou will be one of in the first group.
Okay,
right. Carriacou will be in the first group.
And I know we talk about St. Patrick, we talk about St. George. Anything about Rudy and St. Patrick?
But right now, I know I represent the national, but if I have to fight right now, I'm fighting for St. Andrew. but it would be nice everybody will get their fair share. It's just a matter of phasing it. Yeah. And if I had my own way, I would have started with St. John. If I had my own way, St. John is already there.
Right.
They have the model, everything, the constitution that is going to be used, modified from them. So it's just a matter of, it's more kind of institutional strengthening for them. Yeah. So you could start there and just let it play out probably for a month or 2 and watch what happens, and then you proceed. But the minister said that he want to see at least 3 or 4, start off with them as pilot and then move gradually.
Because I'm seeing the role of the Parish Sports Council in terms of organizing of sporting activities for independence, these sort of things like that. So because it involves more community involvement and things like that. So, right, the grassroots and things like that. So I'm seeing it, I'm visualizing the Parish Sports Council playing an integral role in the organizing. And to some extent, we talked briefly about the reorganizing of the Ministry of Sports, because in some way or the other, the Parish Sports Councils will be taking away some of these day-to-day responsibility from the Ministry of Sports, right? In terms of organizing sports, because the Ministry of Sports probably involved in just about everything regarding sports at these levels, organizing this, organizing that, but when you have the Parish Sports Council to an extent, they can, you can rely on them to organize certain activities and come up with new initiatives regarding sports, and remember, it's not just competitive sports. We're talking about recreational sports as well.
But if you look at the ministry organizing sports, the ministry organizing of sports focus mainly on the schools, not really the community. You have the leagues, you have the leagues that may assist in organizing the football, basketball. So the leagues more or less assist. So now you have the council that will give support to the leagues now, direct support to the leagues to have them assisting in the development of that particular discipline. But I've already made a commitment. My farm, as we start, I'm prepared to work with St. Andrews with the sponsorship for basketball, primary school basketball.
Okay. Good.
Primary school basketball. So I'll push, to make sure that at least that and the farm would sponsor Simsville. Yes, things could happen.
I love that. Rudy, anything else you want to add there before we wrap up?
No, definitely. The information was very good.
Don't forget to send the email.
No. I do stay in touch with them from time to time. So definitely would. No. It's very important. Yeah, it's very important because it's good for those who are also listening to know what is happening. We need to just keep pushing the information more and talking about it a lot more so that the people in Grenada as well, diaspora, know what's happening, what's coming, what's going on. And that's very important to them because, like I said, I also think the views of politics towards sports should be different. And that's my personal view. I always say that I think sports build a nation, sports build community, and I think once government agents can see that, they can put more emphasis into sports, into the communities and into the nation. But like everyone have their own views. They do have their policies they got to follow. But I think sports should be something that's top 3 on a government agenda in any country.
Okay. Just wrapping up, Mr. Simmons, I don't know if you have anything that you can add to that, but regarding the work on the Kirani James Athletic Stadium and then also at the cricket facility, because I know on our program some time ago, it was mentioned about the GBSS, for example, that's the Grenada Boys Secondary School, having their sports meets in November. It's now confirmed that it's actually on the 28th of November. I saw it on the GBSS Facebook page that their track and field, the 2024 track and field championship will take place on November 28th at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. So give some clarity or some additional information regarding the work at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium and the cricket stadium?
Well, I will leave that for the minister to break it, but I could say to the nation right now that positive things are actually happening. But let him say, even this, he woke me up this morning. On my phone going ping, 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 and sending information concerning that. So, but let him say it. Let him say, exactly what it is and so forth. But good news, excellent news. Let him bring it.
Well, I heard from the minister. He says he's listening. Okay. He's not actually on, but he's listening. So I hope probably he'll be able to give us an update regarding
Yes.
that. But
You might just twist your hand to get it used.
all right, well, good to
But
know
no,
that.
but Mr. Simmons, definitely that's good news. I've heard from a lot of Grenadian who was very concerned concerning the timeline for National Stadium to be, in to be remodeled. But the fact that you're saying, it's good and you are very comfortable in saying that, that is really good. Definitely good to hear, and I'm very happy to hear that.
Well, there were people who were calling for the repairs on the stadium, the track. They were concerned. They were blah blah blah. They putting things on social media. There comes a time when it starts now, and then they were complaining about whether or not it was timely. But well, when you think about it, it must be done at some stage, and there will be some consequences, albeit we get accustomed to the stadium, to the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. When we didn't have it, we had to make use of what we had. I think we get in a comfort zone, but we have to understand that there is some level of maintenance that must take place. And you will know about that, Mr. Simmons, because you would have signed off documents with the Chinese some years ago regarding the maintenance of the stadium every 2-3 years or whatever it is. These things like that. And these are the sort of things that are involved when you have these massive structure, you have to have some level of maintenance, if it's the late Royston Hopkins, for example, once said that he doesn't mind closing off his hotel every year for a period of time to do maintenance and whatever it is, and then he comes back fresh, he loses a lot of business during that time, but he says he has to do it. That's part of it. The stadium, for one, because of its location, two, because of its usage, will have to have some regular form of maintenance, and I think the track in particular, there's no way that we could have used the current state of the track in its current state could have been used for something as the Carifta Games. There's no way we could have done that. So somehow it has to be done. My only concern, could you imagine you are doing it this week or next week? The rain, the weather, that's the concern. As I was saying, could you imagine you are doing it this week or next week? The rain, the weather, that's the concern. But it has to be done.
Must be done.
Yeah. Right. So thank you very much, Mr. Simmons. I think I may be hearing, is it rain that's falling?
Yes. That rain will fall for the whole day,
Wow. Yeah, I hope we have good mitigation in place, flood mitigation, as you say, as a farmer. I know it's important. Yes. The only thing in Mr. Simmons is that during the dry season, or when we had the extended period of heat, there were a number of people who were complaining about, the heat and water, lack of water, blah, blah, blah. And somehow when we do have a lot of rain in Grenada, there are people who still complaining about the lack of water.
People start complaining already, because now outside in itself too usually cut water off regularly during the rainy season.
I don't know how much sense that makes, but
right now there's no water in the tap, right here. No water in the tap right now.
With all that rain falling
because of the rainfall,
Or is it a situation where they have to turn off the valves or whatever it is because of the?
I don't know what the rationale.
I don't know if it's making sense, but but it was nice having you, Mr. Simmons. By the way, as an apology for Mr. Clouden, he actually is traveling today, so that's why. And it was last minute arrangement, so everything has to be done today. And he may have been listening or monitoring, but just couldn't have been on because he has to get to the airport to catch that flight, etc., etc. But it was nice having you. The last time we had some technical problems, but here you are now. And for folks, just as a plug, I can tell you, you probably can tune into the Bob Report on Sunday to get some more insights into the issues regarding the national sports policy with Mr. Simmons and the host, Kellen Bob. Okay, you can tune in sometime tomorrow morning and get that. But it was nice having you, Mr. Simmons. As usual, Rudian, what's happening in your neck of the woods this weekend?
Nothing really.
No No cross country? Or it's too cold?
I think it's next week. I think the championship is next week.
Okay, next week.
Yeah, I think it's next weekend. Yeah, I think it's next weekend is the championship. Or it could be. I heard something in December, but I'm thinking it's next week is the national championship. Yeah. I
Okay.
think it's always the same time around as NCAA. So I think it's next week.
By the way, there were some concerns, Rudy and Mr. Simmons, regarding the hosting of the track and field segment. I heard it from some officials that were regarding the track and field segment in the Pan Am Games, and the reason why so many of the top track and field athletes did not compete, and it has to do in terms of the proximity to the it has to do a lot with their preparation for Paris 2024. Okay, and then when you consider the weather pattern, it was very chilly in Chile, you know, and some of them are looking at it regarding you know, the susceptible to injury and, you know, all these sort of things. And for that reason why, for example, our friend Lyndon Victor had to pull out, because he would have been advised, especially with his injury he has to get some rest to get himself ready for Paris 2024. He would not have gone in and risked, you know, aggravating that injury. So that's the reason why so many of these top level athletes did not participate in, and talking about track and field in particular, did not participate in the Pan American Games. There were those who participated because some of them were looking to qualify. It was a qualifier as well. Some of them were looking to qualify for the Paris 2024. And then there were those who, for some reason, did not had a full season, 2023 outdoor season. So this was part of their preparations into 2024 for some of them, because they were not fully engaged in the 2023 season. So quite a bit. I got you know, in conversation with various personnel who returned from the Pan American Games, from, you know, in various aspects of the region, and I was just chatting with some of them, and that was some of the concerns that were raised.
No, most definitely, and I think if you have some of the athletes who are also doing indoor season, also kind of lead right into the indoor season as well. But it was also a off season for most athletes, right? Time for them to take a break, they go on vacation, and sometimes they just getting themselves back in now. It's really hard to pick 2 or 3 times for a season. And I think that could be a major challenge for a lot of these athletes, because they pick for the World Championship and then they have to come back and pick again for another major event. So some of them decide to focus on one event at a time, based on their bodies and injuries and what's more valued for them. They also look at that too. So that could be plus. It is late in the season. You know, it is really late for track and field. Truly late in the season, but it is how it is. It is that's just how it is. You know, countries who get to host, that's just how it is. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, that's true. And we knew for a while that Chile will be hosting at that time of the year. Mr. Simmons, what it will be like in terms of participation for Grenada for 2024 in Paris, especially as it relates to representation. We know track and field is the flag bearer for Grenada at the Olympics. There may be 1 or 2 who may join, whether it's in boxing, whatever, you know. But have you been conceptualizing what it may possibly be like for Grenada?
No, I have not.
Well, I mean, apart from the Lyndon Victor who would have qualified already, you know, Lyndon is already there by virtue of that. He also said that look out for his brother.
Yes,
you know, Kurt Felix.
Yeah, Kurt had a discussion with the minister, and I was privy to listen to the conversation. I sat in that meeting, and
okay, so
he did make mention. Yes,
that's okay. That is possible.
Yes,
right, in preparation. And then whether or not we'll have Anderson Peters back in some sort of good shape, and can really make a mark. I know he has been going through quite a bit, and then we saw in what was published in the media this weekend again. You know, so he has quite a bit. You know, I hope mentally he's he's on track. I'm just hoping mentally he's on track, you know. But And then we still have to wait and hear from, KJ, whether or not, because obviously he has been carrying the burden of Grenada for quite a while, and there comes a time when, you'll have to say, thanks, guy, but that's as much as the body can take, I don't think he's a Kim Collins, or Justin Gatlin, and at some point he will have to say thank you very much. Finally, Hazel is reminding me that come November 19th, which is next Sunday, God's willing, that they continue with the Athletes Commission, and they have a social media branding and college preparation forum where the athletes and coaches and parents can hear from social media branding expert as well as a coach, our Grenadian Joel Phillip, who will be speaking about the college preparation. Lots of information will be available. So there's an opportunity for you to participate in this athletes forum come next Sunday, right? Thank you very much, gentlemen. And Mr. Simmons, all the best with that weather.
Yeah, the weather is good.
Hope you're not flooded out.
Good weather, good weather.
Rudy, he said it from the point of view as a farmer, good weather.
Of course, they need the rain, but it's good though. They needed the rain with the heat, and it's been like a dry season.
Extended dry season,
yeah, it's super extended. However, as a farmer, Mr. Simmons, as much as how the heat was, and it's been bad, people haven't seen it. I've never seen the heat like this. The trees have been still green.
Yes. That is so true.
So that means the earth is still really wet in spite of what. So strange, very strange.
But just as a side thing to that, Mr. Simmons, wouldn't some farmers be concerned about too much rain based on the crop?
Yes. There, you see, a lot has to do with the terrain and the gradient of your land and so forth, and how well drained it is. If your land is properly drained, where I am is old estate land, so you can't get better drains than that nowhere in the country. The estate lands, old estates, perfect drainage. You just have to maintain.
Yeah,
you just have to maintain. Yeah.
Right.
And that is what happened by my side. So the road, you think, but the vehicle is good too. The vehicle I have there is very good. Although it's a SUV, but it's no problem going through the roads.
The roads, yeah. Okay.
You need a Land Rover.
No, there's one in that. There's one.
Oh, geez. All right, folks. Well, I would say that with that sort of weather there, it's probably a good time for you to take in some college football, Michigan and Penn State in a battle today. Thank you, Edwin Sam. I know you locked in to that. If I'm going
to go locked into that right now.
If I'm in a situation like Mr. Simmons and others in Grenada, I will be, playing up with a remote. I'm playing up with a remote. That's all you have to do now. Just sit back and Hazel is saying LSU and Florida, so there's Michigan.
That's another one because Florida is right here, and
Mr. Simmons might more be interested in some basketball, some college basketball.
Yeah,
well, seeing Duke lost yesterday was like my. Yeah, that was a shocker for Duke right there. But they were playing a good team, but it's kind of hard to beat Duke at home.
And it will be interesting because at some point, I think I was reminded about that, and we'll try to have it on a program. It has to do with the, talking about college and college football, college sports, some of the new issues regarding the branding for college athletes and, all these sort of things. I think to some extent, Hazel and
yes, I think that is what. Yes, I think it's
we'll deal with it with
transfer portal,
and all these sort of things. Your rights and intellectual property and things like that. So, those our youngsters who are going into college and things like that, so will understand these sort of things, what is expected, what is and things like that, because it becoming to an extent where they can get paid for certain, certain rights now, whereas before, you couldn't, right? We have had athletes who would have been penalized for getting some sort of donation, contribution, whatever it is. And that when we had to provide incentives to some of our track and field athletes in particular, that they could not have been in a situation where they can get it, hand to hand. Directly. You have to find, directly. You have to find some other person or family member to provide it to them, and then they can get it indirectly or whatever it is. All these things are changing now, and these are things that our athletes and parents and others and even coaches will have to get to know about. And I'm certain that come next Sunday, Hazel and her athletes commission will be dealing with all these things, social media, branding rights, and all these other things. Thank you, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure, and hope to chat with you another time.
So,
okay then?
Pleasure.
All right. Then.
All right.
Okay. All right. So there you have it, folks. Mr. Patrick Simmons, and we had my co-host Rudian Silvan in Toronto. Unfortunately, Mr. Clouden could not have made it because at last moment there was some travel changes that were made, and he had to fly out today instead of Sunday, I think. Yeah, he had to travel today. So he was actually on, but just can't be on the stream itself, but monitoring. But thank you very much once again, and it's a pleasure. Hope to hear from you. Lots of comments I know on the chat. Some of them I will probably try to respond. Some again, I think Mr. Simmons and others will probably try to respond to. Cassandra, good afternoon to you, and thanks for your queries. I'm not a legal expert, so some of those things will be handled by the legal expert. I'm just sports guy, right? I deal with the sports, right? Sports policy itself, blah blah blah, yeah, and things like that. Folks, and I have put lots of information and documents and whatever it is. I'm putting it up on the WhatsApp channel, so feel free to join our WhatsApp channel. Just search for Grenada Sports on our WhatsApp channel and join it, and you'll be able to access all these documents. Once I get them and it's available for the public, I'll just put them there. I'll try to put some more regarding the sports policy and the SRO and all these sort of things and things like that. So just link up with our, go to WhatsApp, go onto channels and search for Grenada Sports. Just join it and you'll be able to access all these things. Thank you once again, folks. Thank you for being part of the program. Hope to see you soon. Hopefully next Saturday, God's willing. Same time, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which is 1 o'clock Eastern Caribbean Time. Another program on your plate. Thank you very much. Do have yourself a pleasant day.